So when we talk about fashion, people always talk about the runway shows, the designers, the inspiration behind certain collections. But I think one part that's kind of always left out is the fashion invitations to these shows themselves. And this is something that I wanted to talk about, and I've wanted to talk about it for a while, because sometimes we overlook how well considered a brand is, or how well considered a certain creative director is doing things in terms of bringing their vision forth for a fashion brand. Now, when thinking of modern fashion invitations, they become this sort of status symbol. It's like a signifier of one's importance within the fashion industry. It's almost a show of the world's most important fashion people that have been selected over others. And this is from everyone, talking about journalists to buyers, stylists, and TikTok influencers. And at the end of the day, not all of us are afforded the opportunity to go to these runway shows. It's really just the select few that are invited or get sent these invites. For the rest of us, and for most people in the world, we have to watch some sort of live stream on Instagram, or we can play back a runway show on YouTube. Fashion invitations can do anything from providing key nuggets into the next direction of a brand to being an extension of the designer's creative vision. Modern fashion invites now double as modern marketing tools, progressing from decorated pieces of paper to souvenirs created to be cherished well beyond the expiry date of a runway show. For example, for Untitled Chapter's Fall/Winter 2013 menswear collection, the invites came in the form of a white small soft handkerchief with pleated borders, and the show details were lightly printed in black. It mirrored the tone of the runway show, which was full of monochromatic looks and soft fabrics. When you look at the set of the show, the backdrop of the stage was also a lot of white fabric, and the fabrics used for the garments in the collection were quite soft, mirroring the handkerchief that was the invite. We normally associate fall/winter collections with having very heavy cottons or wools, and actually Untitled wanted to go a different direction, and this is what I mean when I say sometimes invitations mirror or give you a nugget in where a collection is going to go. And when Untitled was actually questioned about why did you use these soft fabrics, she said, and I quote, "I didn't want it to be too heavy. It had to do with making something really serene and spiritual, but also powerful." Another fashion designer who has built a reputation for very creative fashion invitations is Dries van Noten, a member of the Antwerp Six. For his Spring/Summer 2015 collection, the invites came in form of perspex boxes filled with moss, and it matched the mood of the dark lighting with the mossy forest floor that looked like the show's set. Now, more so than other prominent fashion designers, invitations is actually something that's really important when it comes to talking about Dries van Noten. And this is mainly because Dries van Noten is quite open, and I'm going to say one of his quotes where he talks about not really liking advertising. And when you look at a brand like Dries van Noten that doesn't advertise as much as, let's say, so many other prominent fashion brands, it gives you that extra element into Dries van Noten's fashion world and what he's thinking about a collection, because you don't get these ideas in marketing campaigns and big billboards, because Dries doesn't do that. When you look at a lot of Dries billboards, it won't be like a model wearing the clothing. It'll just be text, or it'll be the face of a model. It's rarely ever an actual garment. So just like a model wearing a garment. And there's actually a reason why Dries van Noten does this, and I will quote what he said. He said, "I hate the idea that the designer has to be some kind of dictator, telling the customer how they should and shouldn't look. That's why we don't advertise. I don't want to tell people how to wear my clothes. It should be up to the wearer's personality." In Dries van Noten's Spring/Summer 2013 menswear collection, the guests were exposed to a flurry of camouflage prints on trousers, jacket, and sandals. The invitation was a stamped copper plate with the date, location, and time of the show embossed onto the metal. This invitation alluded to the military dog tags worn by members of the military, which is used for the identification of military personnel. A big reason why dog tags are actually made out of metal is for identification. So when military personnel go to war, for example, and people die, it's very hard for them to, figure out who's lost versus who's dead. And so with the dog tags, normally, let's say someone has been in a bomb blast or something like that, skin, like human bodies, perish quite easily, whereas metal doesn't the same way. So you'll be able to find a dog tag even if, let's say, you can't identify someone's body. So that's why it's used in the military, just an extra nugget of information. But that's why Dries Van Noten had a dog tag invitation. It was because there were camouflage prints and the collection was heavily military inspired.
I can think of a few good reasons why camouflage is a fashion cliche. It's such a versatile pattern. It can look like anything from a virus to a jigsaw, even a floral print. But that's not what Dries Van Noten was tapping into today. He likes the fact that camouflage is the ultimate masculine print. Camouflage has a very, very versatile personality.
That's what I really enjoyed doing that, trying to push it as far as we could by combining in one outfit 3 different camouflage prints, but at a certain moment that you forget that you're looking at camouflage. That's also why I wanted to put it on a pure white catwalk.
There's no hiding place.
There's really no hiding place for that.
Now, taking it into the world of more recent fashion invitations, for Balenciaga's Fall Winter 22 collection, we saw guests be sent custom broken iPhone 6s that had the date and details of the runway show embossed onto the back of the iPhone. And this, of course, led social media into a frenzy, with a lot of people trying to figure out how they could buy these iPhones. Now, this type of invitation matches the design philosophy of the brand's creative director, Demna, who regularly centers his collections around current affairs like climate change, the politics of the EU, and the experience of refugees. What I actually found so interesting about this invitation is technology moves so fast. So iPhone 6s right now are considered like a phone that doesn't work. Apple has even been known as a company to make their older phones less usable as time goes on and as more phones are released. And so therefore, using an iPhone 6, most apps will struggle to work on an iPhone 6 right now. And so it's a phone that's considered very heavily discardable. People are just like, oh, that's just a really old phone. But now that it's become a Balenciaga invite, people are trying to find ways to buy it on the secondhand market. And he's taken something that was seen as sort of like a throwaway item, oh, that's a really old piece of technology, to something that people would actually cherish and people actually want to collect. And he's turned it into a collector's item. I find that aspect of things really interesting. But this isn't the only time that Demna has been very creative with invitations. He is known to experiment a lot with his runway show invitation. Just in his most recent collection, guests were sent customized Balenciaga $100 notes, which was an ode to the collection's location, which was held in the New York Stock Exchange building. Over time, I've noticed that there has been a move in fashion invitations away from discardable items to things that can be cherished or things that have some sort of utilitarian value and can be tangibly used. And I think this has come from a place of sustainability, because sustainability is something that everyone is talking about, all the brands are talking about it, everyone's trying to be sustainable. And so what's a way to send invitations that are sustainable? When you think of perishable things like Jacquemus sending bread as an invitation, or Fendi sending pasta, or Gucci sending fruits and vegetables. These are all things that can be used, so they have some sort of tangible use other than just reading a piece of paper. Another good example of this is Gucci for Winter 20, when invites were sent to guests through a WhatsApp voice recording. We have also seen other brands sending out voice note messages as invitations, as well as digital QR codes that have all the information once the QR code has been scanned.
Ciao, come stai? Tutto bene? Stavo pensando che se tu fossi a Milano il prossimo mercoledì sarebbe bello se venissi qua al Gucci Hub per lo show. Fammi sapere, Baci.
Now, one of my favorite fashion invitations of all time is actually from the Hermes Spring-Summer 1996 collection. Now, to sort of paint a picture and paint the story, it's not a great story, but in 1995, there were terrorist bombings that happened mainly in Paris and Lyon. So because of these bombings, the country was just generally in high alert, high security alert, especially when it came to public spaces. So the Hermes 1996 Spring-Summer collection was held in a shopping mall in Paris, and therefore guests going to the runway show were going to go through very strict security measures because it was a public place, and basically the city was just on high alert. So the idea that Hermes came up with was to send a version of their iconic Kelly bag in this sort of transparent plastic model, and therefore it made it easy for guests and journalists going to the runway show to easily show the security what was in their bag, and it made it easier for them to go through the security checkpoint. And when you read what was actually printed on the bag, it translated as a special for security bag checks. And when you look at the runway show, similar bags were made to it on the runway show. And I think the runway show opened with Amber Valletta opening the show holding a clear Kelly bag that had a smaller leather version on the inside. But I just thought this invitation was so well considered, considering what was going on culturally. And yeah, it's just one of the favorite invites. When I think of like really iconic invitations over the years, that is definitely one that comes to mind. But anyway, comment down below your favorite fashion invitations of all time, the favorite ones that you've seen, the best ones you've seen. And yeah, I just really wanted to make a video dedicated to fashion invitations because I think it's something that should be considered more when talking about fashion. We should also consider, oh, what are the invitations like? And what actually sparked this video is I'm reading this book. It's called Invitation Strictly Personal. It's by Ian R. Webb. It's an amazing book. And it's essentially just 40 years of fashion show invitations. I'm not sure if you can see, but it goes through like some really, really iconic show invitations over the years. If you're interested in buying this book, I'll try to leave a link in the description below. But on that note, if you want to learn more about fashion, I have an ebook on my website on effective ways to learn about fashion, which I heavily recommend. And on that note, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with another video very soon.